A guy asked me out twice, then stopped initiating contact. We didn't talk for 2 months. I messaged him, and he asked me out again. Why do you think this is? Could it be that he found someone better, but then it didn't work out?
What he is doing is pulling away that attention from you. That's how a guy gets a girl, as you can see after he asked you and you, I think you made an excuse or something, said no to him. He has no other option but to think that you are not interested. Look at this like this. When you meet someone that has interest in you, or you have interest in them, it's like a game of tennis. You each make moves. As you can see, he's batted the ball into your court twice and you didn't bat the ball back.
That TikTok short reminded me of two personal stories. One in my IRL group that happened very recently, and one that was coming out over the course of a year, give or take. Now, the conclusions from all three of these stories, the TikTok short, my two personal stories, is that more women should ask men out, right? For multiple reasons. No matter how you dress, right? Men are not, like, they're not mind readers. They're not,
You guess.
Well, I'm not a mind reader.
psychics. So they're not going to be able to know if you're trying to get their attention. They're not going to be able to know that you can drop all the hints in the world, but until it's out in public, it's obscured, right? It's not the Victorian era. You have the ability to put a lot more power in a relationship, or put more ability to de-obscure things, the more ability to say what you expect in a relationship, the ability to say what you can provide and what he can provide, right? And that is like the ideal, right? That is the ideal kind of scenario you want to be in. If you say what you expect in a relationship and what you can provide, and he does the same, and you both agree to it, and you're both honest with each other, you are doing way better than 90% of people. You just avoided maybe not 80% of problems, because relationships, unlike getting a relationship, is hard work. And well, for a woman, you can take charge of your dating options. No more waiting. The guy is probably going to appreciate that you're willing to talk to him, right? They're going to really feel like you're special, you're different, you're brave, you're asking directly, you're breaking norms, you're creative, you're open-minded. And they're also going to see that as like you're not insecure. And they're going to read that in a way that is very positive. And it's going to make it so they subscribe a lot of positive character attributes to you, right? And it also just avoids problems, because if you're just dropping hints, you're just implying you want a relationship out of the guy. There's no reason he shouldn't expect you of lying, right? There's no reason he should expect you of not telling him the truth. There's no reason he should not there's no reason he should trust you. In fact, there's plenty of reasons he shouldn't trust you if you're ready to do it. If you can't enter a relationship by telling the truth, you have to rely on lying, deceiving people, and being generally kind of hurtful. You're most likely be a net negative to his life. Like, any relationship you can get into without, again, playing tense, without like reciprocating that you're interested as well, like not playing mind games, the better off you are. Now, the two stories I'm aware of in my life, I'll start with the one that personally affects me. It's work related, and it's with my second job, where I'll work in the weekend studying for my IT course or watching Netflix movies while doing a security guard job for a company that relatives of mine own. And I initially did it because the woman who worked there during the hours felt kind of intimidated by the fact that a junkie came in one day and started saying a bunch of weird things, wanted to buy a van from the company, which was very bizarre. And the second time was a guy was looking at her weird and generally making her feel uncomfortable, according to her. Now, I don't know how reliable you can really trust her going off that, because a lot of women take a lot of things as being creepy or inappropriate, especially if the guy isn't the best looking, but we all know that. So I agreed because I would be paid uh, money for doing so from her, and also the relatives in question. I would be compensated, and it's someone to talk to that I kind of knew. It's a family friend, so I've been doing this for a while, right? And I would say 3 months ago, I let her know, hey, I'm going to throw a few parties. I'm inviting a handful of my friends. You're fully invited to come over. It's the beginning of the summer. It's heating up. Some of us are going to go in the pool. We're going to ride bikes, maybe. We're going to go to an arcade. And it's me and a bunch of friends. Any weekend you are free, just let me know. My friends would probably get along with you relatively well. And it really didn't go beyond that. But she took that, me being very like open, maybe not vulnerable, but definitely like taking the risk of getting to know her. She took that as a sign that I was interested in her, despite the fact that, that I would just ask her, right? Like I knew she was in a friends with benefits kind of situation, right? I knew of that, and like I even said, I not for me, but it's a free country. I respect the fact that you're kind of honest about that, with the relationship she was in prior, something that personally happened to them. And, that kind of soured me. I'm still pleasant with her when I go to my job, but I don't extend that invitation. I don't want her in my friend circle. I don't want her like coming in anymore after that. That really pushed me off because it showed that she's a very plotting kind of person and she wasn't willing to respect me enough to ask me directly if I was interested in her. Like she just wasn't, and that to me tells me that uh, she doesn't really respect me or a lot of people enough to just be, at least emotionally honest and human with them to the point that she would just be say or ask, "Hey, are you?" And that was very disappointing. The second story I know involves a college student or she graduated now, but at the time a college student that was about to graduate that lost her virginity to a guy that she was, if we trust her, incredibly infatuated with. Liked everything about this guy, had everything going for him, the kind of stereotypical manosphere of high quality man, potential to be a 6-figure plus earner, had good grades, he was athletic, he was in a sports team, he was 6 foot plus, right? Decently attractive enough, no facial deformities, not anything that wouldn't look out of the normal, right? So Chad, the Chad light at least, and definitely her type. He was tall and white. This woman being Asian. So you know, and according to her, I don't really trust her on this because revealed versus stated preferences, but her stated preferences were that she was very Christian and he was, Christian adjacent. He had certain conservative values that he shared with her, and she decided to let this man take her virginity and not go after him, not talk to him, not seek him out additionally, and just tell him, "Hey, I like you," right? And I'm gonna be honest, if you're not willing to respect someone enough to the point you're willing to do that initially, there's no reason they should expect you to like them in general, right? In fact, the default expectation should be that like you don't like them, you don't respect them, because you weren't willing to put yourself out there. You weren't willing to be reciprocal, right? You weren't willing to use the choosing signals, if you will. And you know, weeks, no, months go by, almost a year, in fact. And she gets into one relationship with someone afterwards, and everything seems fine for the most part until she feels bored or she, goes through the Chad widow kind of withdrawal symptoms, the Chad addiction. She starts thinking about all the perspective, all the ideas she could have had with the other partner, and she starts to realize that the person she hooked up with as a substitute, because he was willing to ask her out in comparison to this Chad, ended up going nowhere. So she ended up sleeping around with another another male by the same name of all things. So, but only until she was willing to tell me and her friend who wasn't living anywhere near her about the situation going on. It was only until then that we realized, or that she was realizing through her being confronted that, like, hey, she should have opened herself up to, she should have been honest with T, you know, the initial character is named Tom, and just tell him how you felt, right? But she was just unwilling to do that because she found it humiliating. You know, the fact that she had to meet someone else's needs and be honest with them, you know, was such a blow to her ego, to her self-esteem, that she considered it a assault on her character and on her being, which is just incredibly disappointing for me. Like, it's just so pathetic that a human being can even be that way. But yeah. So honestly, the main takeaway from this video is that if women were just honest, if they were more willing to play tennis, if they were more willing just to say, hey, I find you, if they were to switch roles, if they were to embrace that asking men out, right? I think you would avoid a lot of problems. It puts power in the woman's hands. It makes it so she's more likely to be able to negotiate terms of the relationship. If it's, especially if it's in a friend group, you know, other friends are involved. If other people know something's going on, other people can warn her about character flaws and they can warn each other. The whole social circle can reinforce, and you have the phenomena of wisdom of crowds. And you know, the intoxication of crowds is only really felt during chaotic moments where people are forced to think very quickly and, like, reactionarily and, like, kind of frantically. But when you're in a calm environment where people are responsible and they do things like this, you don't really have to worry about that. So if you're a woman in a Western country where you're empowered to do so, you should ask men out. It will be a net benefit most of the time. And yes, there's a possibility of rejection, but it's far less likely going to happen in comparison that if you were a guy, right? Anyways, peace out. Have a good weekend.